This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Today's focus is Nikola Superior to Tesla is our inquiry today. Thanks once again for joining us. Wanted to thank our Patreon supporters as well as our subscribers. If you enjoy the show, please take time to like and subscribe. We also want to thank you guys. There are many professional videographers on here, and we always appreciate your recommendations on improvement, and we'll work on those aggressively. So I had an interesting conversation this past about 3 days ago. We're still working on acquiring SpaceX shares for our investors and do have some slots, so drop a note to us if there's interest. I wanted to review with you the fact that I was talking with an engineer who's based in the Seattle area, and he was interested in looking at some SpaceX shares and has some experience actually working for SpaceX, and so respected the company that he was trying to figure out how to invest in it. And an interesting sort of sidelight came up in our conversation, and he said, if there's a way for Nikola to use, for example, windmills to provide the electricity necessary to split the hydrogen from the oxygen, you now have a situation where the whole Nikola plan seems to work in ways you didn't think it might work otherwise. So I was thinking about it and I was like, wow, that is really interesting, because one of the question marks about Nikola's business plan has been, how in the world are they going to get cost-effective electricity that's lower than the cost of other people so that they can do the splitting, store the hydrogen, and then use that hydrogen in trucks? So one of the answers to that is renewable energy, which I think is kind of interesting, perhaps having some Tesla solar panels set up there with recurring energy that would do the split. Mr. Milton has indicated that there's no way that hydrogen is superior to using electricity to drive trucks. But the issue that pops up is that at this point, if a hydrogen solution can equal what is being experienced with gasoline vehicles, a lot of the global entities and governments would be happy to get to that stage. And once the electricity solution, which is better, is clear, they'll move on to that. So then we had to go back and ask this very, very strange question, which is, what's going on with the semi? Now, you're looking at a semi here, and we've been watching all this video of it going on, but we have to do some interesting comparisons. The first comparison is you need to actually build a facility that the trucks will be built in. Well, guess what? Nikola's had a groundbreaking for their facility, and they have a production location in Germany where they're having prototypes made. And so there's actually movement in the production of that vehicle, right? Now, what's happening on the Tesla side? On the Tesla side, every 6 months, Elon or another executive at Tesla makes an announcement about the truck. And then we wait 6 months, and then there's another announcement. And so we're about 2.5, 3 months into it. So, based on the last flurry that was caused by the IPO of Nikola. But based on their pattern, I'm expecting that we're going to hear about the semi or see some good photos of the semi. And then 3 months from now, either Elon or one of the other executives will make an announcement about the truck will be here 6 months from then or a year from then. Well, that kind of makes sense. But one of the ways you could argue that Nikola is superior to Tesla is the fact that Nikola has actually done a groundbreaking. Tesla has actually done a groundbreaking on a plant to produce the Cybertruck, as you just saw in Texas. But guess what? If it's possible that they just, mow down some field and start building trucks out in the middle of nowhere, I think the semi-truck is actually going to need a manufacturing facility, which they currently do not have. So let's review. Number one, there's been a groundbreaking, and we actually see where trucks will be produced, and prototypes are being produced, and the prototypes that are being produced in Germany represent the possibility that Nikola, if customers demanded it, could actually start doing small-scale production of trucks right now. And this is on the hydrogen side, and they're actually doing electrics, even though they don't have a big electric partner yet. So this brings up a really interesting question, which is like, what's going on with Tesla and the semi? So you could say, oh, these guys don't have enough money, so therefore Elon has decided not to build the truck yet. Well, if you look at the data, unlike Nikola, all the people that have signed up for the trucks are being asked to put up a total of $200,000 deposits for those vehicles. So this has become a repository of a large amount of cash with what we think is in the range of 3,000 vehicles that have been ordered by customers. So you see where I'm going with this is the fact that we are all focused on the fact that Tesla has a lot going, has a lot that's been accomplished, and one assumes that this can be easily leveraged into the next stage of their success. And so what's starting to happen right now, based on the behavior of competitors, i.e. looking at Volvo as it's combined with Daimler to actually figure out a hydrogen solution, there's a lot of discussion right now that suggests that what's actually going on is that there's a sense that government agencies need to have a plan B, because if the wait on Tesla plan does not work out, they actually have to have a way to actually deliver a solution that's superior to hoping that Elon changes his mind versus the 2-year behind plan that we already see. And, you know, the most egregious sort of data point that I'm looking at and trying to figure out right now, and I think I have a solution to that, is why has Elon made no effort to find a location where the trucks could be built and start production? And so the answer we have to suggest here is that the semi doesn't work. It's a beautiful prototype, as you've seen. It is moving around the country, being demonstrated to different folks. But the do not work piece that they may not have figured out yet is the weight piece, because there has to be a calibration of how much weight the batteries in the trucks have against how much freight they can carry because of that weight. And if that number is nowhere near what Elon has claimed it is, that's the reason why the truck is going to remain in the prototype phase and not switch from prototype into production anytime soon. Now, you know, one of the things that's buzzing in my mind about all of this is time to production. So there was a survey done before the China plant was built, and what they determined in the survey was at no time in the last 50 years has any manufacturing plant been built from scratch to a completed manufacturing facilities in autos or trucks in less than 2 years. The Chinese did it in 9 months. So we wanted to kind of bring this up because there's this interesting question mark, which is, wait a second, if it's going to take 2 years to build a production facility and the Cybertruck has been begun, that means 2 years from now, they're going to start delivering that vehicle out of Texas and to customers all over the globe. That's good. The problem, though, is that the longer you wait on the start of the production facility for the trucks, the longer the time it is before you can start building any trucks. So based on what we're seeing right now, yes, Elon talked about let's move forward with production, but as you've noticed, there's been huge fanfare surrounding every manufacturing facility that's been built for Tesla. And for the truck/semi, there has been no fanfare, and there's been no definitive place where it's been articulated that this thing is going to be built. So we come back to why Nikola has such a high valuation. And it seems to me that there's this possibility that Nikola's hydrogen trucks and the process he's doing could end up hitting the market before Tesla's Semi does, even though we've seen so many great things from Tesla that have actually come out and come to fruition. So everything we just covered, in theory, could get blown up by Nikola or Tesla announcing, hey, we're ready to go, we're building in this location, the truck facility will be done in this time. And we haven't gotten any of that. Based on the history that we've had thus far, as I said, we're 3 months away from the last statement about a truck by Elon. I expect we're going to have a statement made by Jerome Guillen or some other senior executive. I guess this would be in October or November, saying the truck has been delayed. It's going to be available in 6 months. That's what I'm expected. And then I think what's going to happen after that, if they're still not ready, is we go through the same cycle with Elon making an announcement, and then it goes out a further distance. Now, I'm very surprised to see how this has all been working out, given how good the truck looks. But you have to sort of believe what you see, not what you're hearing. And the market cap of Nikola is really driven by the fact that customers are saying, we'd love to have the Tesla product, but if we can get something that works, we're fine with that. By the way, note that the latest order situation with the garbage trucks that's been acquired by Nikola for their hydrogen trucks, they actually have a greater number of orders for vehicles than Tesla has currently. So we're in a very interesting zone here where you really want to think about the fact that that everything's going great for Tesla on every front. And one of the points that Elon made about the truck or the Semi was that even though trucks represent 25% of vehicles, they represent like 65% of the pollution out there. So it even adds more emphasis to this huge question mark of how is it that Nikola is actually ahead of Tesla in truck execution, and Tesla has all these resources to do so. So I sort of didn't want to make this show because I figured that a lot of our smartest folks would start throwing daggers in our comment section. But now that we've gone through this process and we know what's going on at Nikola versus what's happening at Tesla, step back and take a deep breath and look at the data on the table. And the suggestion we're seeing is that there's a big problem. That problem is that the Tesla Semi looks great, but for the metrics it needs to meet, it doesn't work. And is it a permanent circumstance that it doesn't work? The answer is no. Now, I would say that the other thing I was off the back end of this thinking about is the fact that Daimler has been working on this issue steadfastly for the last 8 years to try to address this issue both in cars as well as in trucks in terms of viability. Tesla has gotten it done in cars and Daimler has not, but Daimler has a huge amount to lose because they have 40% share when it comes to trucks. Over time, and we'll include in this video, we've showed some video of efforts by the folks at Daimler to develop solutions that are really prototypes because they don't meet the performance specs needed for regular trucks. But the work that's being done to address all the torque, all the freight needs, etc., using battery power is in process. And I think that it's going to get done. It may need another battery iteration before we get there, but this will get done. The key to it and why we brought this show up today is that it's not here yet. And so the response that both customers and governments, et cetera, are doing is saying we may need to use nitrogen vehicles to get the zero emission goals that we have in mind. and then step from there. One last note I wanted to bring up here is that as we were doing research on this story, if you go and look at the website of Nikola, you'll notice that in June of this year, they spent $30 million to set up supplies of renewable energy-produced hydrogen, and from ALA or ALE, I believe it's the name of the company, out of Norway. But the general point is that Nikola's product isn't superior to what Tesla offers, but they're setting up a supply chain to be actually able to deliver that solution, have customers using it, and then when the electric solution comes down the road, they'll be ready for that with their vehicles. But as a stopgap to that destination, it seems like a whole bunch of entities have chosen to move in this direction. Could this change? Absolutely. If Tesla chooses to stop and deliver rather than just the prototypes we've seen, we have a totally different circumstance. But until they do, Nikola has a plant that's being built for the trucks. They have a larger number of prototypes in action. They're doing customer deliveries. They're doing a large number of things that Tesla is not. And for everyone that's interested, concerned about the space, the issue is, why is that? And the answer is, we'll find out soon, but it's a very strange situation. At any rate, wanted to roll on to, out of our Nikola discussion, into our health tips. Don't forget, 25 leg lifts a day helps to reduce the chance of knee issues. Also wanted to encourage you to think about the 5-2 or some other fasting type diet. Most of the doctors in our survey are doing some kind of fasting. Number 3, Mr. Petrobono was one of our folks who does weightlifting stuff, suggested that a couple of times of weightlifting a week will improve bone density. And also wanted to remind you, do not go to bed within 2 hours of eating, preferably 4, to let the food digest, because all of that stomach acid will digest you instead of the food if you go to bed with it all the time. At any rate, in German we say tschüss, au revoir, French lehitro, Hebrew choda hafez, Farsi assalamu alaikum, Muslim hey do, Swedish ni hao ma, Chinese Здравствуйте, German, Здравствуйте, Russian hello, do widzenia, and in Jamaica we say enough respect, walk good man. Thanks for taking time out to join us today. We are working on some SpaceX shares, etc. If there's interest, please drop us a note. It requires us to do about a half hour, answer your questions, explain what's happening, circumstance by phone. That does take time. You need to register on Patreon at the $30 level, and then we'd be happy to give you a briefing on that. And the Patreon information is below on our channel if that's an interest area for you. Have a great day. Bye now. Thanks once again for joining us, and we look forward to our next conversation.